What's up, guys? Welcome to the Cool Cast. I'm your secondary host, Jackson L. And this is...
I'm Mark, aka Coyote Panda. And this is Higher Dimension.
Higher D.
And I'm here with my man Jack, who already introduced himself.
Yeah, man. I'm happy to be here.
How was your day?
Good. I feel like I'm retired. I go to work, I paint, do some asana, thrift. That's it. That's what I'm doing. You know?
Any good finds this week?
Yeah, a few good finds. Got like a cool Y2K SpongeBob hoodie, which is kind of funny.
Yeah. You ever find anything like valuable, like uranium or something?
That would be crazy. Dude, there's some people who find stuff like that.
Yeah.
They'll just find paintings by famous, from 1902.
Like a Picasso.
Yeah. I just talked to somebody who found like a Van Gogh sketch. Crazy. He opened up a painting that was just like whatever. It was crappy, and there was a sketch in there. And yeah, he was like, I'm gonna sell this. I'm like, why haven't you sold it? Like, why haven't you listed it like right now? He's like, it's not gonna be that much, probably like 10 grand. I'm like, dude, that's a lot. Why don't you sell it?
Yeah, I mean, if I found something worth $10,000, that would be nice.
Yeah.
So yeah, man, we were going to talk about some stuff today. Definitely feeling the feels this week. What about you?
Feels. Yeah, man, I'm feeling the feels. I'm kind of like hitting it with a lot of Muji lectures, which is helping a lot, I feel the feels, and I throw on a Muji lecture, and I'm just like, okay, this makes sense now. But
I feel that. It's good to have like a go-to philosopher.
Yes.
To
yes.
kind of ease things for you.
Yeah.
A guru, if you will. I've been just trying to be silent and do nothing.
You're raw dogging the sadness?
Yeah, raw dogging it. Yeah. Raw dogging it is hard, but
it's tough.
Rewarding because it really shows you how we're addicted to distractions.
Oh, yeah.
I'll catch myself wanting to go to the phone, watch a YouTube video.
Yeah.
I was playing the crystal singing bowls to at least, occupy my time a little bit. And I caught myself picking up the phone to just see what was going on the phone, while I'm playing the crystal singing bowls.
Right. Yeah.
Why would I do something like that?
Yeah.
Well, we're all addicted, man.
Yeah, it has a lot of power over you when you've developed that habit of jumping on the phone to whatever. I don't know. I guess it's different like when you own your own business, I feel like. But still, it could be excessive.
Yeah, I mean, that is the going excuse. I need my phone, I have a business, but the reality is sometimes I'll purposely wait to get back to somebody, not because I can't get back to them or I'm trying to prove something, but more like just I want to be energetically aligned with being able to communicate with that person.
Yeah.
So I might not be when their message comes through. And, as you grow in patience and maturity, you don't always want to answer right away. And you don't have to.
Yeah.
So the excuse that because I run a business, I should be on my phone all the time or be instantly available for people. You train people how to treat you. So if you're instantly available all of the time, the one time you're not instantly available, now that person feels like there's something wrong, or you're doing something to them. Maybe they have a victim mentality, and because you didn't get back to them in a day, they're having some kind of existential crisis that you didn't respond. And that is very common among all of the neurotic behaviors that people have developed. And it's gotten pretty bad. It's gotten very bad.
Yeah, makes it harder to communicate. Definitely.
Yeah, I mean, it's hard to have effective communication with emotionally unstable, mentally erratic people.
Mm.
And people need a lot of help right now, mentally and emotionally. I find that most people are hyper associated with their mental process.
Mm-hmm.
So they have like hyper vigilant thoughts about their situation or their body or whatever it is that's causing them suffering in that moment.
Mm-hmm.
And people tend to simultaneously be disassociated from their actual emotions. They're actually fighting off the emotion with the mental process. So rather than just feeling bad or feeling sad or crying or maybe getting angry and yelling, instead of doing those things, that mental process is like a dam for the emotion to actually flow through somebody, and they're holding it back.
Mm-hmm.
And because they've done this for so long, they don't really know how to have emotions. They don't know how to do it properly. And that causes a lot of mental illness, actually.
Yeah. What do you think is a good release? Like, music always sort of will evoke that out of me and allow me to break down sometimes.
Music or an old movie or something that reminds you of this is good for old unprocessed issues. So if it's something from childhood, maybe watch a movie that you watched as a child, or maybe listen to the music of that era. But for something new, something that is happening right now, you really need to feel all of the emotions that are naturally occurring. The more you avoid that, the more problems you will have, because the emotion is like there's energy there, and that energy has to be released. So when it's not released, it's stored in the body, and it's something that can create like a heat, because there's so much of this stored energy in a certain spot. It becomes inflammation. It becomes inflammatory in the body, and a lot of people don't understand that, or maybe they don't want to believe that, because I'll have people come to me in physical pain, and if I go that route, if I decide to explain to them that behind every physical pain or ailment is some unprocessed emotional um, emotion that you didn't process, people right away become hyper defensive. Oh, I processed my emotions. But maybe you didn't, maybe you didn't process them fully. Maybe you didn't allow them to fully flow through the entire wave of that natural emotional response.
Right.
And that causes diseases, actually. It causes mental, emotional disease, if you want to call them a disease, and physical disease. And it is the origin for a lot of major diseases, like cancer, like high blood pressure, like diabetes. All of these diseases have a mental and emotional origin.
Right.
Like, why would you crave sugar so badly that you can't even control it? Well, it's because life isn't offering you anything sweet. So you're going and constantly seeking out that sweetness.
Yeah. So do you think, because these things are always building, sort of things that cause that heat within, there's no way to, like, you can clear yourself for the day, for the maybe a few days, maybe even a week. You can clear yourself. So you just have a really powerful, massage that might lead to a cry, like that type of thing. But it still just builds again. There's still just so it's just like a constant sort of like process.
Yeah, it is a constant.
As long as you're like in the body, basically.
Yeah, it doesn't end, and that's why in like Buddhist teachings, the first noble truth is there is suffering, right? Or there will be suffering. That's true. There's going to be suffering. How well you can accept whatever that suffering is, that's going to determine the degree in which it harms you. And a lot of people can't accept it. Therefore, the degree is greater. I'm in greater harm, whether it's self-inflicted harm or external.
Yeah.
Externally inflicted upon me. I'm going to suffer. And, many people have learned not to accept the pain and the suffering, but to use it to dominate others from a place of deficiency, which is very interesting. That's the victim consciousness and the victim mentality.
Yeah.
And that's perpetuated by therapists and,
sure.
People not only enabling them, but simultaneously empowering that victim aspect of their personality. The empowerment of the victim is definitely very present in society. But I think it's by design. I think that for the powers that desire domination and control over people, society, they have figured it out that it's very easy to appeal to somebody's victim. So we will get what we want by using their victim in order to push our agenda. So that's happening too.
Where the hell is that happening? Right? Take them down.
Well, some people are obvious. Some
right.
people's agendas are very.
They're sloppy with it.
Yeah, exactly. And, for the sake of the podcast, we don't have to go into like naming people. I know we've named people in previous episodes, but let's, we're going to stick to taking the high road.
Yeah.
The highest road.
So something that came up was what you were saying. I find that there's sort of this perfect dance that you can do to process your emotions, accept joy into your life. For instance, I was thinking like sometimes I'll paint and I'll just be in this like subconscious rhythm of like, I'm doing the perfect thing right now. This feels great, And then sometimes I'll sit down to paint and it won't feel good. I'll just be like, I'm not really like in the vibe to paint right now. I'm still painting and it's cool. But like, have you ever had an experience like that where you're doing something that you love? You're like, this is great. And then, but you do it another time and you're like, I'm just not feeling this right now. Maybe playing music or something.
Yeah, absolutely. And, it's hard because, we look at these things as like degrees of motivation, right?
Sure.
I wasn't motivated to play the music today. I didn't feel this feeling of this is great and this is what I want to do.
Right.
But and I've experienced this and then you usually stop doing that thing. You're usually like, you know what? I'll pick it back up tomorrow. Okay, that could be okay, but that discomfort that you feel initially is just something that is trying to push you out of your comfort zone. Mm-hmm. When you feel discomfort, it's because you've become comfortable. Mm-hmm. So there's something pushing you out of the comfort zone. Maybe playing something that you've never played before. Yeah. Maybe, doing something that you don't want to do until you break through that to the other side of that energy. That could actually be very powerful. And most people don't do that. So it limits them. It keeps them where they are, right? If I'm only this good at the guitar, it's the times that I sat down with the guitar and I didn't want to play. Those are the times that have kept me this good instead of being even better.
Right. Yeah, the guitar is a great example because I've had my interesting guitar be like, I don't even care. And then when I learn literally like one new song with like maybe 2 or 3 new chords in it, it's like a whole new life, you feel it. You're like, wow. And that's what I'm going through with painting right now, because I just took that class like whatever 2 weeks ago, and it's just so nice to try out like a new style, and it kind of like gives it this whole new aspect to it that makes it so interesting. So I feel like a lot of sort of people processing things and um, like the sickness of the individual has to do with finding your own like the rhythm of sort of your subconscious. What I'm in this state. What can I like remedy it with in a positive way? I'm not talking about like going out and drinking. I'm talking about
Right.
like actual things that are gonna they're gonna be a little bit uncomfortable, but you're gonna come out in the end feeling better. Like, what can I remedy this with? And that's what I've been doing sort of in my yoga journey for the past like 3+ years.
Yeah, I mean, I like that. And I agree that you have to find, knowing what state you're in is something that most people don't even attempt to do.
It's hard. It's hard.
So knowing your state, accepting what state you're in, and then trying to do something that manages that state in a way that makes you feel, better in a way, higher, lighter, more happier, more vibrant, whatever it is. That's actually like a very important practice. And I think that it's definitely overlooked.
Yeah.
But that's actually something that, what would I call that in hypnosis? Because that's definitely something we do in hypnosis, where we replace a belief with a better belief, something that supersedes the existing belief, but it has to be easily accessed at any time for it to be better instead of worse. If you can't access the belief, meaning you can't find that belief is true in your frame of reality, then you're not going to believe it's a better belief. So it has to somehow be accessible. It has to reflect back at you. So the same thing with using, okay, this is my state. I can use this to get me out of this state, or to lift me up out of this state, or to
channel it, maybe.
Or I could channel this negative state into this art, or into this song. So what are my tools? So I would call that a resource. That's what I would call that in hypnosis. That would be a resource. But a resource could also be one of your egos, right?
Sure. Yeah.
So it could be, I'm feeling like a negative person right now, so I'm going to utilize one of these egos that I created that uses that negativity in a positive way. So maybe it's like the workout guy. You like to work out. So you bring in that resource and then channel the negative feeling and the negative emotion or the negative behavior into your workout. Right? So, but workout Jackson is not accessible all of the time.
Sure.
You can't work out all of the time. So what if you feel like that at work and you can't work out, right? So you would need a different ego that you can access.
Yeah, I've hit that point a lot. Luckily, I have a lot of things to like oscillate between, but I felt that like crawling in my skin feeling for sure. Like when I'm like, oh my god, I have to like move right now. I gotta like move my body, and I'm kind of in a place where I can't really. Luckily, I'm lucky enough to live where I can if I really need to. So I'm very fortunate in that way. Like my schedule can be sort of changed, but yeah, that's a rough feeling, man. Like it kind of just hits you.
Yeah, it does. I mean, and a lot of people turn to medication, antidepressants, anti-anxiety medication.
Yeah.
These are feelings that everyone feels. Everyone. No matter how wealthy you are, how healthy you are, how strong you are, how positive you are, there will be a wave of an emotion that you weren't expecting. It'll come through and it'll catch you off guard. But resisting it adds a layer of suffering, because now you're still having the emotion, but you're just adding resistance. So if it's anger, now you have anger and resistance.
Yeah.
You are better off just having anger.
Yeah.
Okay, I'm angry, so what? But now I'm having anger and resistance to my anger.
Yeah.
It's more exertion of your energy to do that. And it creates stagnation in your energy.
Okay. Yeah, very well put. It's a practice that I look forward to developing more too, just in my own life, because I feel that definitely, having resistance to that emotion just builds a whole nother layer of obscurity to the whole situation, So,
Well, what do you mean by obscurity?
like, I guess more or less spiraling. Like, that's kind of maybe what somebody would refer to, like, I might be in sort of a spiraling state when I'm have anxiety, and then I'm having resist. I try to resist that anxiety. And then,
Okay.
That type of thing. And then I start to spiral. I'm like, well, I can't control it. Well, I can't control anything. Oh my god, I'm like, that type of thing.
Okay, yeah, and I think that happens to a lot of people. They go into a panic.
Right, panic. Yeah.
So, what if you just accepted anxiety in that moment? What would that look like?
Yeah, I guess it always sort of peaks and then just kind of bubbles out. I suppose like there's a
Right.
peak and there's like a.
That's true. So you know that it most likely needs to reach a peak and then level out. So at least you know what to expect.
Right. Yeah.
I think what happens is people forget what they already know to expect.
Yeah.
Not that they forget it, but part of the brain does turn off, if you will, when we're in certain states, like anger or panic, right?
Mm-hmm.
Like a fear. So we can't think logically in that state. So the first thing you have to do is come out of that reactive state and try to focus on becoming responsive instead of reactive, right? So, okay, I'm feeling anxiety. I feel myself reacting to anxiety. How do I want to respond to anxiety? Do I want to respond by welcoming it, by saying, okay, I know what to expect from you? Or am I going to respond and try to fight it off? Which one is going to cause more of an issue? I mean, it's kind of obvious because we're talking about it in such a way.
Yeah.
But fighting it off is obviously not as good. It's not as good.
Yeah. That's a beautiful thing to be able to just welcome it and, not be like this is good, but just be like this is something that it's manageable. Like you know what I mean?
It's manageable. It's neither good nor bad. It's just part of who we are.
Right.
We all have all of the emotions that we have. We all have them. We all have joy, anger, sadness, fear, anxiousness, grief, paranoia, right? All of these things. We all have all of these things. No one is free from them. So, if you have depression for many, many years, okay, most people turn to medication. Some people turn to herbs. And then some people turn to their self. They go within and they're like, how am I going to change this? How am I going to take myself out of this depression? Well, some people look at it like I have to give myself activities to do. Okay, that might be a little tool to get your body moving, but does that remove depression or does that lessen depression? I mean, you really have to get to the root of what you believe and what you value. What you value is an experience that you really want to have in life. And if your beliefs are not in alignment with your values, if you're not actually living in your values or like literally living your values, you're going to be depressed. So most people with that long period, years of depression, they're not living their values. Meaning, let's say I want to be, I value being an attractive person. Well, if you're doing everything in your power to be unattractive, if you're not going to the gym, if you're not taking care of your body, if you're not, working on, a certain look, whatever it is, I don't really know. I mean, I might have picked a bad example, but if that is something you value and you're doing the opposite, then you're going to be miserable all of the time because you're going to have self-hatred. I hate myself. Why? Because I want to be beautiful, but I don't even allow myself to be beautiful. So instead, I don't work out, I don't eat healthy, I don't dress well, I don't do my hair, I don't do whatever. I just don't take care of myself at all. I go the opposite way. Well, that's an example of what the ego really does. It's not even, we can't even look at it like it's the mind. There is an ego there that is doing that. And it's not just one ego. There's egos fighting with other egos.
Wow.
There are. Absolutely, because there's also the ego that wants you to do better. That wants you to say enough is enough. Well, the ego that says enough is enough has to talk to the other ego that says I'm not good enough. They have to have a conversation with each other. Right? These are things that people find outside of the realm of possibility. They don't think it's possible for them to be able to do this, to be able to heal themselves, to be able, we've been taught as children that if you talk to yourself, you're crazy.
Yeah. Sure.
But that's not true. That's
I talk to myself a lot.
Well, that's a generalization. If you manically talk to yourself about nothing,
Right.
about just gibberish all day, if you're sitting on a park bench just talking out loud to yourself about, whatever random thought comes to your mind, that might be unhealthy. But talking to the parts of yourself that need correction is very healthy and necessary, really.
Yeah, I hope I'm not the only one that walks around the woods talking to myself.
No, absolutely not. I mean, you should walk around the woods and talk to yourself.
It's almost like a mind space in the woods, It's like all these trees are like tendrils and neurons reaching up to the sky you're walking through. So it's almost just like the woods creates a safe space for you to like not contain your thoughts in your head, but kind of let it like echo out,
Well, you need nature to have spiritual experiences. They go hand in hand. The spirits in nature and being in the environment with, things of natural origin, they're going to help connect you to spirit.
Yeah, I feel that.
So people who are very disconnected from that, they tend to be more nihilistic, where they may spend most of their time on their computer or at home in front of the television. And they don't go out into nature ever. There are people living among us that may never have visited a nature park in their life. Most likely more people than you even want to think of.
Wow.
Yeah. I know friends of mine who I doubt have ever been to a nature park.
Incredible.
Right? I doubt they have.
Yeah. It's a different kind of person, It's different. Whole different interests and values, I guess, really.
Yeah, their values are definitely different, but I think that a lot of their values are socially engineered values. Like your career is going to bring happiness. Owning a home is going to bring happiness. Having, 3 televisions, 2 cars, a pet, and nice furniture in your home, maybe a pool. Those things are all going to bring happiness.
Totally. Yeah.
But then you look at all of these families and you see how many people are unhappy, on antidepressants, going to therapy constantly. perpetuating their own victimhood everywhere, trauma bonding with people, and trauma dumping. As soon as sometimes people will come in, and the first thing they'll do is tell me everything that went wrong with them all week, as if I'm not a person. There's no they're not yielding in any way. They're not like, hey, I have something, I would love to talk to you about some problems that came up with me. No, it's just like right away, oh, this week I, got a flat tire, and then my uncle called me a name, and the tone, the body language and everything. And that there are a lot of people who are like energy vampires in a way where they will dump all of their trauma on you and then pull you into it with them. Yeah. And part of you wants to join them because subconsciously, because you want to relate to them. So it's very unfair.
Right.
And then when it's all over, you're like, I can't even believe I got sucked into that, right? Have you ever felt like that?
Sure, definitely. I know.
You wanted to be nice, you wanted to be there.
Totally.
But part of holding space for people is actually being very neutral. Mm-hmm. I had to do that to someone the other day, and that person was very much so trying to take my energy. And I wasn't willing to leak any of my energy out. I was retaining all of my energy because I knew that once I did, this person was going to take advantage of that. Because this person needed tremendous amounts of unnecessary attention. Right? They wanted to dominate me from a place of their own inadequacy, or their trauma, whatever, causing them this feeling of inadequacy. It's not fair to do that to people. No. But they are unwell, and I'm playing the role of the practitioner. But it's interesting because I also want to be seen as the person, not just the practitioner. Mm-hmm. Like, hey, I'm also a human being, and we can talk about your process, but let me hold space for it in a way that empowers both of us. Yeah. Not just, you taking energy from me. Yeah. Let's try to empower each other in this little scene in the movie that we're in.
Right. It's a good exercise to be able to sort of experience that scenario and try to equalize that energy, I don't know if it's fully possible in your scenario. Like some people they just go and you're just like, okay, here we go. But it could be a good practice.
It's a great practice. Yeah. And I feel like I'm more a beginner in that practice because I would get, I have Neptune in the first house. So I would get sucked into their delusion very quickly. Yeah. And I would try to relate to them by bonding with them over the things that they're trying to bond with me. Like I'm trying to bond with you over my trauma, and I'll be like, okay, well, I'll bond with you over mine. Well, we'll bond together in trauma. Yeah. It took me a long time to realize, like, oh, I'm trauma bonding with my patients. I don't want to do that. Yeah. So it might actually be very uncomfortable then for me to put up a wall and say, I'm not going to take on your trauma today with you. I'm going to help you from a sacred, neutral space where there's not any attachment to your trauma. That might catch a lot of people off guard. Yeah. Because most people actually bond in a way, they bond over negativity.
Sure.
Especially on this planet, they bond over negativity.
Sure. Everything's messed up. Let's go,
Yeah, I mean, look at social media.
Totally.
All of the comments, most of the comments you see are negative.
Yeah, I mean, it was just last week when we were talking about the whole Kendrick Lamar thing. It's like everybody's bonding over the fact of like, this dude's a piece of shit.
I know.
Like, what are we really, celebrating here?
It's not a great thing to celebrate. Like, it's actually very negative.
It seems negative, yeah. So that's always like when I see people uniting in like a healthy positive way. It actually evokes like a deep emotional feeling within myself.
That's nice.
When I see everybody like singing in a kirtan and talking after the kirtan, and just wow, this is actually like a little. If we could only like do this on a larger scale, that would be nice.
Yeah, I mean that's a beautiful energy. I agree.
Yeah, even at like the paint workshop I did, it's like you could really like find little enclaves of groups, that are there's no ulterior motive. Everybody's there just to have, a good time, to support each other. It's always a beautiful thing.
Yeah, and it's really great to zoom out of that like large frame where we're thinking about society.
Sure.
And we're thinking about the problems in the world, and we're thinking about politics, and we're thinking about how are people going to receive me, and how am I going to receive their opinions. Instead, we can focus on small groups of, however many people are in that group, and we're free in that moment. Actually, we're free.
Yeah.
In that situation. We're more free when we make it smaller and more simple. And that's why group work is so important and so powerful.
Yeah.
If you could look at all of those little group interactions as group work and make it your work in a way, like your practice, your spiritual practice, that is the quickest way towards spirituality, to value relationships over the material, meaning like material possessions. Like, sure, I value my material possessions, but I value our relationship more.
Totally. I mean, if a lot of things that are material, if they got destroyed, it wouldn't be hard to, either just forget about them or try to replace them. But you can't replace like what you said, basically.
Yeah. But unfortunately, though, a lot of people do think they could replace their relationships quickly. And that's why a lot of people are having relationship issues.
Like you're talking about romantic or just
friends? All different relationships, romantic, business, working relationships.
I don't really think that necessarily.
No?
I mean, like, if me and you weren't friends anymore, I would be like, no problem. I'll get another doctor friend who's, like, that would take a while.
I mean, I just experienced 3 different people cut ties in a way that was very cold. And one of those people were just like on to the next in a little situation that I observed.
Yeah.
And I think people could be very cold and calculating and cutting. And it's part of our 3D experience here on Earth.
Yeah.
And they have reform to go through before they could have better relationships.
Totally.
They are on a path to learn that through difficulties, through suffering, through loneliness, through realizing, oh, I'm bringing my problems into this other relationship now too.
Yeah.
Instead of dealing with them properly.
Yeah. Yep.
So yeah, you might not see it, but it's not something that you're looking for. You're not looking deeply in other people's relationship dynamics.
Yeah.
So that you're better off not doing that. Really.
You got to do the deep dive over here.
Yeah, it's good to be able to help, to be able to support people, but you're taking on that view of relationships as well. Like, oh, I think relationships could be beautiful and wonderful and mutual, and it could raise your vibration and your energy. But then you experience other people's relationships, and you can't not know what you're seeing. You can't not know what you now know. Like, oh, relationships can also look like that. And they can be very difficult and tumultuous. And, you could use that to make your relationships better. You could use it as a tool. But that doesn't mean those negative relationships don't exist or those difficult relationships don't exist. All of these things exist, and they're all for whatever our lessons have to be for our growth and development.
Yeah. Yep. Tough going through the lessons, you know?
Yeah, I mean, it's tough emotionally.
Yeah.
But again, people try to make it a mental process instead of an emotional process.
Mm-hmm.
You know, you might catch yourself thinking more than feeling.
Yeah.
Me included, you know, me included. It's hard. It's so hard to feel and so easy to think.
Yeah.
Especially when things aren't pleasurable.
Yeah. Would you say it's like the first step to being able to feel as opposed to mentally try to rework things? Like, would you say just sitting, sort of meditating on it, sort of just, you know, whether it be like crying, whether it be kind of sitting without any distraction, like that's probably a good way.
Yeah, I mean, these are, yes. I mean, really, first you have to ground yourself. Most people are very much like throat chakra up.
Yeah.
And not in a spiritual way, in an ungrounded way, where all of the energy is up here, but these chakras haven't been developed enough where they're not really useful right now. Yeah. It's more like sacral and third eye being imbalanced. Like there's too much energy there. And because in the lower chakras there are all of these distortions, this energy is just distorted all the way up. And it's kind of trapped up here. So you have to bring all of that energy down and ground yourself and start seeing reality clearly. You have to start seeing how you are most likely the origin of most of your issues.
Right.
So if you haven't accepted that, how are you going to accept the emotion that you caused by acting in the ways that you acted? I acted this way towards this person. They did this to me. And now I have to feel it. Well, you could easily like avoid responsibility and say, well, I didn't cause them to treat me this way. Mm-hmm. Well, you did because you have karma with this person. Mm-hmm. Everything here happens for a reason. Whatever your karma is going to come back to you through somebody else or through, you know, some other form of catalyst. Mm-hmm. So it takes and I'm not saying I'm superior, but it takes a superior person to admit that everything that happens to me is because of me.
Yeah.
The more you're able to do that, the more you could deal with the emotions that come along with that.
Yeah, it's tough not to drift into like the heavy like self-blame, like sort of self-hatred when you are approaching that step. You know, but that a lot of time I'll lean too far towards like everything that I'm experiencing is my fault, and then I'm just like, well, I suck, you know.
Yeah.
So it's hard to like not go in that direction.
Well, if you think you suck because of that, there is a part of you that does suck, and that is the motivation to not suck anymore. Mm-hmm. So you have to, you know, look at it like, okay, I have a tool here to use, and it's motivation. It's I don't want to suck. Mm-hmm. So the more I do this, the more I'm going to feel like I suck. So I'm going to stop doing what I'm doing and do this instead, and then I won't suck as much. Yeah. You know, so that feeling is still valuable. Mm.
Would you say like also going back like the ungroundedness that feels like? Would you say that has to do with sort of like assigning, like sort of assigning meaning to everything?
That's part of
like
it.
How you said like ground. The first thing I thought of when you said that is like look at things as they are. Like stop assigning meaning to the situation that you're thinking of. You know, the room that you're in right now. Why you're in this specific area? Why a relative did this to you? Why? So it's like I feel like that might be the first step in a way. Is like stop looking at things, giving things meaning.
I think that's definitely part of it. And I think that people, they want to assign meaning to everything that's happening to them, but they don't want to assign responsibility for it.
Yeah.
They don't want to assign the responsibility to their self. So they're looking for all of these external reasons why these things are happening, instead of looking at the internal reasons. Well, maybe if I had more control over myself, I wouldn't put myself in this situation. Maybe if I had better boundaries, I wouldn't put myself in this situation. Maybe if I didn't crave attention, I wouldn't attract somebody like this.
Totally.
Or maybe if I wasn't a people pleaser, I wouldn't attract people like that. Right? We have to start taking radical responsibility for ourselves, and also shutting down any of the energies that are coming towards us that we don't accept.
Right.
I don't accept this energy anymore.
Right.
There's nothing wrong with that. And a lot of people are more on the side of people pleasing, so they do accept that. They accept people's, I don't want to hurt their feelings. Well, you don't have to do it in a way that hurts their feelings.
Yeah.
Do it in a way that empowers yourself to support boundaries that you've created.
Yeah.
Well, I'm sorry, but not today. You know, I understand you're going through something, but I don't have the space for it right now. I'm more than happy to help you when you get out of this state that you're in.
Yeah.
You know, try to calm yourself down a little bit, and then we can talk.
Yeah.
Like, what's so bad about that?
Yeah, that was well put. Yeah.
You know, you're obviously a little ungrounded by this. So maybe take a few minutes to ground yourself, breathe.
That is the first step. I mean,
right.
You can't do anything. That's the best thing you could possibly do. You know, if you started to try to help them out the jump without that, that's the wrong approach.
Right. Well, a lot of people are very quick to give advice, and I've been guilty of that. I haven't always had like the best skills to cope with people.
Right.
They come over time, you know, and it's not always something you can learn. When we look at our own evolution in this particular lifetime, it feels like the levels of attainment are achieved just by getting older, you know, just by going through the process of life.
Sure.
You know, now that I'm this age, okay, I have more acceptance than I did for that situation, or more, you know, I have better boundaries now for those situations. Definitely. Right? That comes with maturity.
Time.
So, you know, a lot of things are going to catch us off guard, especially when we're young and we don't have life experience. So the way that we deal with what we don't want, it evolves, and it becomes like a better system. We gain better strategies over time.
Yeah.
Hopefully.
Yeah. Something that came up is like, you know, as far as assigning meaning to things, like I'll just use myself as an example. Like, I have a lot of friends, but like, you know, I'm sitting alone in an empty room, and I'm like, all of a sudden, you know, you're there for an hour, you're there for 2 hours, you're like, nobody likes me. That's like a big thing. I feel like that in the collective, you know, it's just like, if you're not like surrounded by people and people are reaching out to you and trying to get to you, it's like, you know, I'm nobody likes me. I'm a loner. Like, it's so, even though that's not even close to the case, like you have so many people, blah blah blah. It's like still that it's, I guess it's like the strength of that specific ego of wanting, like, sort of needing people to hold them up, approve of them. You know?
Yeah. Well, you may definitely have an ego that has this neediness for attention and for people.
Totally.
And there's also an aspect of the self that it doesn't like you. Like,
sure.
if you like yourself, you're okay with being alone by yourself for hours.
Totally.
I like my own company. I like myself. So I don't have these feelings that others don't like me, because I like me.
Totally.
You know, there's degrees of that, though. It's not all of these things are in flux, meaning like maybe one day I really love myself and one day I really don't.
Yeah.
I think that's actually pretty normal. But trying to find more of a balance in it is what, psychology calls healthy self-esteem. Well, what if you go years hating yourself and then you have years where you love yourself?
Sure.
And then maybe years where you find a balance between loving and hating yourself. And then, it levels out even more. And now you tolerate yourself, in both areas of love and hate.
Yeah.
Right? Okay. We create strict guidelines that no one is really able to follow.
Yeah. Interacting with the mind is just so interesting because there is something like wriggling around in there that, at least for me, that I can't control. Like, as far as the example I just set out, I'm sitting in a room alone. There's days where I'm like, at the end of the day, I spent the whole day alone. I'm like, that was amazing. I'm so happy I got that time. It was beautiful. I feel rejuvenated the next day. And there's days where I'll spend the whole day alone, and the next day I'll be like, I'm just like a loner or whatever. And tapping into what that is, I feel like is almost like the key to just understanding everything. What are these subconscious cycles? It's something that I've been trying to figure out for a while. So
Yeah, I mean, it's good. It's good to get in touch with the emotion behind that thought. Like I'm feeling sad that I'm alone. I feel lonely. And now the thought comes in, well, you're lonely and alone, so you must be a loser. And then there's a part of you that agrees with that thought. Oh yeah, you're right. I am a loser. Now I feel even worse. Now I want to make myself feel even worse. I think we've talked about how like people respond to emotions and to thoughts in a way of reward and punishment.
sure.
I'm having happy, joyful thoughts about myself. My self-esteem feels good, so that now I deserve a reward for all of that, right? I'm going to either reward myself with positive self-talk, or I might even reward myself with something else. Maybe I'll buy myself a new jacket because I'm just amazing, right? I feel so great, so I ate a steak dinner. Who knows? Whatever. Then you have the part of yourself that just wants to punish you when you don't feel good. Oh, I feel, like a loser right now. How can I punish myself? Well, I'll punish myself by, with my thoughts, and I'll keep telling myself that I don't have any friends and that I deserve to be alone. And it must be something that I did. Meanwhile, maybe you have 100 friends and they're all doing the same thing you're doing right now.
Totally.
They may very well be.
Totally. Something that it's like just as an example of an athlete who has negative self-talk. Like Michael Jordan, the whole thing about him, like he just was not. He was never good enough, and that's why he was so good. It's like that could be like your star power in a way. Like I do feel that with myself in painting. Like there's sort of almost like a positive in being like painting's good, but it's not good enough. Like, I could do even better, and then you really strive to be like absolutely exceptional. And I really do feel like that there is a beauty behind that.
Well, yeah, I mean that those people learned how to use that as a tool,
Right.
as a resource.
Totally.
Like Joe Rogan says that a lot too. Like
Yeah,
he wants to feel uncomfortable. He wants to feel like he's not good enough. He's learned to use that ego as a resource instead of something that works against him.
Right.
Right. So instead of, oh, I suck today, instead of like getting a box of cupcakes and eating all of them, he works out and does it like an extreme workout. So he's learned that even that negative part of himself is still a resource.
Exactly.
He may not be conscious of that particular thing, but he very well may be. Who knows? But this is something we all do. We all do these things in various degrees.
Yeah. I love the idea of turning it into something just amazing. I feel like there's a lot of potential in that. You know, songwriting for being creative, anything. Anything.
Yeah, and sometimes things are just frustrating,
Mm.
you know? Like, let's say I have a patient who I'm really looking forward to the session because I prepared myself and I know I have an idea of how I think I might help them.
Right. You have a nice angle going.
Yeah. And then they don't show up.
Mm-hmm.
And when I contact them, they don't even get back to me. And then when they finally do get back to me, they don't even really want the session anymore. That happens. And that's okay. But I still, to this day, I want that person to realize that I am a person too, and that you're not just wasting my time, but you're also wasting my energy, and I only have a certain amount of energy. So what is it that, what resource could I bring in that situation? How can I use that to motivate myself? Well, I could say I could have had stronger boundaries. I could have, what is it called when you call before the appointment? Verified their appointment,
Sure.
whatever you call it, confirmed. I could have confirmed their appointment. I don't usually do that.
Yeah.
That might not have helped anyway. Who knows? You could call people to confirm and then they could say, you know what, I'm not going to come today.
Right.
But at least I would have known. If I called to confirm, maybe I would have known or sent a text. Because most people, they're not trying to screw you intentionally.
Right.
They have good intentions, but like they're going through these waves of energy too, where they're like, oh, man, I can't even leave the house right now. I don't know what that person is experiencing. They could have debilitating anxiety and they may not want to tell anyone about it.
Yeah.
Right. There's a fine line between, yes, this affects me. Yes, this frustrates me. Yes, this even hurts me. But also, yes, I don't really know what's going on in that person's life. And I may never. And it might be something that they struggle with. Maybe they have low self-value and they don't feel they're worth healing. Who knows? So, when you start really using the intellect, you're aware of all these scenarios, but you still feel how you feel. You could still feel I'm frustrated by it, even though I know all this stuff.
Right.
I know all this stuff. It's still frustrating.
Yeah.
Right.
All the secrets of the universe or stuff, whatever.
Yes.
Subject to the mind.
Yeah, and to the emotions, really. I mean, the emotions, I think, the mind is more flexible than the emotions. Like, when you're really, really angry, could you all of a sudden be happy? No. Like, do you ever bring in joy when you're extremely mad? Usually not.
Sad,
right?
I could bring in joy because you have that level of almost like you could laugh at it.
Okay.
Sometimes.
But usually you bring it in with your thoughts first. You start thinking about something that brings joy, and then now I could feel somewhat joyous. Or you could look at your sadness in a way of this sadness is somehow romantic and it brings joy to me. But there's still like a mental component there, because it's easier to control your emotions by bringing in something from the mind. I'm talking about being totally, radically genuine with whatever genuine emotion you're in. That's something that is so hard for people to do, including me. I might want to keep a certain stature in the office, even if somebody has upset me. I can't just be angry and upset with them. Why? Because it's become socially unacceptable. But it's actually something that if we all were able to do, we would all actually love each other so much more.
Right.
Like if you were really angry and you came in here angry and I was just like, oh man, he's angry, instead of trying to be like, whoa, 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 you can't be angry right now. You can't be angry in here. This isn't a place for anger.
Right.
You know, we're all trying to control each other to keep some kind of peace that is an illusion.
Totally.
Because you might have peace in your environment, but the person isn't peaceful inside. You've just created them actually more suffering inside their body that you can't feel.
Yeah.
I can't feel them, so it's all good. It's like, no, it's not all good. That person is feeling it inside of them.
Yeah.
They could explode, you know?
Yeah. I guess it's hard for me to relate because I don't really go to places like with a bunch of pent up anger and like starting to like act out about it. But
Some people do. I mean, I've had people come in here very angry.
yeah.
Angry about the government. They're angry about, you know, the ride over. They're angry about the traffic. I used to have a guy who would come in furious about traffic all the time and complain about the drivers on Nichols Road.
Yeah.
I drive up and down Nichols Road all the time. I am totally unaware of the bad. I mean, in the moment, sometimes, yes. And, you know, I'll point it out. I'll be like, look at that guy.
Yeah.
But I don't like show up angry where I'm like ready to fight somebody. That's a little crazy to me. And, you know, even saying crazy is a little overboard, but people are in that. You know, they are in it.
Yeah, I respect it. You know, as soon as I'm walking in somewhere, I'm not gonna like. And I see people, I'm like, why am I gonna neutralize it? Like there are people here, like you know.
Yeah, but what if we were allowed to just walk into the coffee place angry, and everyone was like, "Oh man, he's angry today."
Right.
Instead of it being, it would be cool. Instead of being like, "Oh, can't feel that."
Right.
Can't feel that anger.
Right.
I've got enough of my own.
Right. Well, yeah. I mean, you know, it's. I guess it depends. There's degrees to different people. Like you know, I've been in like a frustrated mood, like in my car or whatever, and then I go into a coffee place and I'm like, just normal. Here's coffee, and then I go back outside. And I'm like, motherfucker, you know. And then you go back in your car and you're like back, and then eventually you chill. But you know, that's pretty ballsy to just like show your anger everywhere you go.
It's you know, it's been removed from society.
Sure.
You know, because people feel like they're on, you know, if you're angry, I'm unsafe.
Sure.
And, you know, there are degrees of it. You know, certain degrees of anger are dangerous.
Yeah.
But I think that people should be able to have a mild to moderate amount of anger when they're in anger.
Yeah.
You know, and I think that we should be a little bit more welcoming with people's emotions, grief and sadness, especially if somebody's filled with grief and sadness. To feel that alone is actually very heartbreaking. You know, if we were able to hold that for people in a better way, we would love, like I said, we would all love each other so much more.
Yeah. Yeah. It feels like you're almost like blessed with angels when you're going through a grief and sadness period, and then there are people sort of around you that are helping you.
Absolutely.
You know, it feels like a very angelic feeling.
Yeah, I mean that's why people, you know, go have funerals and they have their whole family there. It's to deal with the sadness in the company of other people who are also experiencing sadness, right?
Yeah.
So what if you're not experiencing sadness and somebody else is, you know? There's a fine line. Do I become sad too? Do I remain neutral and risk that person feeling their sadness isn't totally welcome, right? Like, you know, there's a lot of nuance in this.
Yeah.
You know, and it's a practice. I'm going to grab a drink.
Yeah.
It's a practice.
Yeah. You know, just being genuine is probably the best option. Or is that, you know?
Oh boy. Knocking everything over.
Yeah, just being genuine, I guess, you know, like you can't fake sadness to get on somebody else's level of sadness.
Well,
you might be able to fake outrage, like somebody's outraged, and you're like, yeah, like that's a little bit easier.
Yeah.
Like people come to me crying, and it's like I won't start crying with them.
Some people will. Some people will.
Some people will, yeah.
Yeah, and I don't know. You know, maybe that's nice. Maybe that's a nice thing to do for somebody.
Yeah. Yeah. I guess it depends, you know. If I would genuinely cry in the situation, then I will cry with them. But if I'm just like okay, feeling okay, and they're crying, like I would just be there, and I wouldn't need to cry, that type of thing.
Yeah. I mean, we're taught as men to like be strong when somebody's crying.
Sure.
So there's some programming there too. You could just give someone a hug if they're crying and like kind of receive them in their sadness.
Right.
That's a nice thing to do. Or you could just be there and not stop them from crying. Just tell them it's okay, let it out. I'm here for it. That's a wonderful thing to do for somebody. And I have not been the greatest with that up until recently, like within the last 2 years.
Yeah, it takes work. It takes practice to be able to hold up. So
It all goes back to how well we've processed our own pain. Like if we're hyper associated with our own process, when somebody comes to you with theirs, it feels impossible to hold because we're holding so much of our own.
Yeah.
So we have to be able to process fully what we're holding. And once we get to a point where we've processed a lot of that and we've let a lot of that go, and when I say let it go, I mean accept it and find forgiveness and then come back to some sense of wholeness.
Yeah.
Until we've done that, it's very hard to hold space for people.
Yeah.
So we are living in a society where all of that is avoided at all costs. That's a huge problem. That's a huge cause. That's a big reason why we're in a mental health crisis right now. That is a big causal factor right there.
Yeah.
Avoiding that process at all costs.
Right.
Accepting, forgiving, and becoming whole again. Fully coming full circle through our entire process. How many people do that?
People have different like eras, some things you fully heal from. I feel like everybody's probably had something they've fully healed from at least, and then other things that they haven't.
I mean, I notice a lot of people talking about things that happened to them 20 years ago.
Yeah.
See, I look at it like 20 years is too long.
Yeah, I think so.
Like you should have put that down a year ago. You should have dealt with that years ago.
Yeah.
That's where healing becomes very complicated. There's so many layers that people have to go through.
Yeah.
Where their healing process could take years. And the big problem, it's not the fault of anyone. It's the fault that what I'm trying to say is none of these people are at fault. This is not something taught in society at all. You don't go to school and you're taught these things.
Totally, yeah.
This is something you have to find. You have to
have good karma and get lucky to be brought the information somehow.
Yeah, you have to seek the philosophy yourself. When does that become a desire for most people?
Yeah.
I'm seeing younger people desire that more, and I think it's because yoga has become more popular. Hinduism has become more popular. Shamanism, plant medicine, all of these things have become. There is a novelty to those things, and that's why people are kind of creating a personality to embody those things.
Yeah.
And some of those people are just by doing that, they're getting the effect of they're healing in a way because they want to embody that, and they're willing to go through certain processes to embody that, right? So they're using that I want to be a shaman, so I'm going to use these plant medicines and I'm going to purge all of this out, and I'm going to become kinder, and I'm going to be a better space holder so I could be a shaman at some point in life, right? That's what I want, right? So this desire comes from somewhere, and when we fully embrace that desire, it takes us the distance, right? So it's great that a lot of young people are having these desires now.
Yeah, that's a powerful desire. I want to become a shaman.
Yeah, some people have that desire. Yeah, it's a great thing to do. Yeah. But you also have to question: are they doing it because of ego? Or are they doing it because it's a genuine calling?
Yeah.
Right? Are they doing it because it's a fad and it sounds cool, or because maybe I could make some money doing this, or maybe my ego thinks that it could fix everybody, or am I doing it because my heart really wants it? That's something that I kick around in my mind all the time about other people. Like, is this person genuine?
Yeah.
Is their heart in it? Like, recently, I decided I don't want to just see anyone at my practice. I want to see people who really value me, and I also want to value their process. Like, meaning, like, if they're not doing anything to help themselves at all, and they're just coming in as a victim, and they want me to hold an endless amount of space for them, and they're really like an energy vampire, I will see that person once, and that will be it. I won't turn them away, but I'll be like, okay, I've helped you.
Right.
You can now, choose. Do I want to continue to be the way that I am, or do I want to actually follow through with this and humble myself and reach out and say, oh, that actually really helped. I would like to do more of that.
Yeah.
But then there are people who are, they want to be cool. They just want to be cool.
It's pretty cool to be a shaman until everybody finds out that you're just doing it to be cool.
I know, or to just make money. Making money is great, and it's important in society. But I think like there's a threshold to that, just like anything. Like, it will become less and less rewarding the more and more money you make without purpose. When you don't have the purpose behind it.
Sure.
And hopefully it's a good purpose, like a purpose to help people genuinely, not, pretend to be a philanthropist, right?
Right.
But like genuine aid to humanity.
Yeah, elevate the collective consciousness.
Yeah, dude. So anything else going on with you that you want to talk about? Anything good, anything bad, anything in between?
I have a lot of projects coming out, so that's something to look out for. I've just been using like new techniques for painting, and I'm gonna drop something new probably, if not tomorrow or the next day, probably Friday. I have another big project I'm working on.
Do you feel they're different than your previous work because of these techniques? Like, do they have like an essence to them that's different?
Honestly, I'll let the audience be the judge of that.
Okay.
I feel like I see it because I'm me and I just know my work very, very particularly. But my audience might not even notice.
Do you ever focus more on how you feel about it than the audience? Like, I noticed like you're like, oh, like I'll let them figure it out, but I think, and whatever, doesn't matter what I think, but I think that if it only mattered to you, like, I have this new technique, I know my work is different, I know that this painting is different and unique compared to my other body of work.
Yeah.
I think that is actually what's going to cause other people to feel the same way.
Yeah.
Because it's a new energy to it, right?
Yeah, they might see that. I mean, I'm still painting people. I'm still doing portraits. It's not like all of a sudden I'm doing abstract
Yeah,
stuff. You know, I'm
right.
still doing portraiture. I'm still painting. You know, like the thing I'm going to release is like an iconic sort of like niche, like rock star. So it's, you know, I
Okay.
still do like the same style of like subject matter.
Uh-huh.
Um,
Yeah, yeah.
but um, yeah, I'm just, you know, I'm working with new different colors and working with different like techniques to actually build a painting. You know, when you're building a portrait, like you're legitimately building. Like you're not just like putting something down and being like, okay, like you're literally, it's almost like building a house. Like, you know what I mean? You need to like start with this, and then you need to upgrade it to this, and then you need to, you know, there's just steps, you
Uh-huh.
know. So the steps that I'm taking are just different to get to the final product.
Nice.
So
That's great.
yeah, it's very entertaining for me to try
Hmm.
something sort of a new process, new
Yeah.
colors. For instance, I never used black for the past like since I started.
Uh-huh.
I never used black. I was using blue and like some brown because I've just heard like don't use black, and now I'm like using black again because
Mm.
that's just a different
Hmm.
way to go about it. So this is like the first time I've used black this week in like 7 years. It's kind of like it's just like
Wow.
whoa, I'm actually using black, straight up black. Like that's
Hmm.
crazy.
And like, do you think it has changed like a degree of consciousness for you? Like it's opening up like a different portal of consciousness to come through because you're changing the technique?
Yeah, it's a whole different it's a different chapter
Mm.
of my work and like what's possible for me. You know,
Yeah,
it's just a total different chapter.
that's really cool.
You know, it's gonna open me up to want to paint certain things that I wouldn't have wanted to paint, like, you know,
Okay.
last month.
Uh-huh.
So that's definitely big.
Mm.
Like the confidence of it.
Okay.
It was kind of crazy because the other day I um I was like, okay, I know I want to paint this particular artist, and I had like a really big drive to paint them because I love them very dearly, and just, you know, a musical artist. And so I went on my phone, found a picture that I loved. It happened to be like the picture was a certain shape, so I was like, I got it in my head. Okay, I'm gonna need like that shape frame. Went to the thrift store right after work, found the exact size frame. I like envisioned it. I was
Mm.
like, oh my god, perfect. Boom, grabbed it, and I was like, okay, now I need to go get a canvas at Michael's. I get to Michael's, all the canvas is gone,
Mm.
empty.
Wow.
One canvas, and it was the size I needed.
Oh, really?
I
Wow.
was literally like, stop. Like, what the hell?
Huh.
So I grabbed it, and I was just walking around looking for other stuff, and I was just like in disbelief that I was holding it. I'm just like, obviously, I could have went to Hobby Lobby and, you know, whatever, but it just seemed so like, you know, kismet. So yeah,
Mm.
that was just amazing. And then like one of my good friends called me and we talked for a while, and I was just walking around Michael's telling him about it on the phone. I was like, bro. So
Well,
yeah,
that's interesting though. Like there's definitely like I always feel there's some kind of energy at play.
big time. Yeah.
I like to say energy sometimes instead of spirit because I don't know. I've been studying like quantum entanglement
Well,
lately, and our thoughts are definitely connected to things that we're not aware of. You know,
without a doubt, yeah.
so like your thought process for this painting and what's required, it could be kind of shaping reality.
Totally.
And that doesn't mean like all of the canvases disappeared instantly and this one was the only one left because of your thoughts. No, but your thoughts maybe being arranged with the thoughts of all these other people caused a sequence of events to occur that somehow removed all of those canvases and then this was the only one left.
Wow. I like to think about it like
Yeah, and that to me has been interesting lately. I've also been kind of getting into time dilation theory too,
that. Okay.
because I'm interested in the possibilities of rapid healing through hypnosis.
Mm.
because I've always had certain doubts that, like, oh, even though we just did something on the astral plane with you and it was very deep and profound and it seemed like rapid healing, that rapid healing must not have taken place. You're going to have to come a few times at least. Like, this is how I originally thought. But now I'm thinking, no, once the work is done, it's done. Once that quantum process is complete, it should be complete.
Yeah.
You know, all you have to do is have a thought in the quantum realm and it will change reality for you.
Right. It's more potent.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, there's a lot of things over like this past few months that have been happening to me where I show up somewhere to get something at a store and there's one more left of it. That's happened to me like several times. And this is like such a stupid example, but I went to Whole Foods and like the hot bar the other day, and I had an idea. I usually get like lasagna as one of the things that I get, and there's one piece of lasagna just like cut out in the middle, just like the last piece of lasagna. I'm like, damn, like looking around like who, like somebody like, you know, saved this for me. Like what? It's such like a weird feeling. Like, have you had that happen recently where there's like literally something that everybody's buying all day, whatever, and there's just one more like waiting for you?
Yeah, I mean, I've had like weird synchronicities where I thought it was going to take me longer to pay something.
Yeah.
Because I was like, oh man, I'm not going to have this amount of money for weeks.
Yeah.
And I'm like, well, what if I use my hypnosis technique, go into the quantum realm, and through a portal, pull money out? So I did that in my mind.
Yeah.
An hour later, I get an email, and Square wants to give me a loan for $3,000.
Oh shit!
And normally I'm like, oh, I don't want another Square loan because then I got to pay every time I take money. They take 20%.
Totally.
But I needed this money.
Yeah.
So I was like, this is perfect.
Yeah.
This is perfect.
Yeah.
So was that related to my hypnosis? I don't know.
Yeah.
Or is it just the power of my thoughts and desires quantumly connecting to, you know, create these synchronicities? I think it's both. On a smaller level, like I always get these walnuts that are like, they're really delicious. They have dried fruits, walnuts, and you know they're covered in brown sugar. So if I really need a treat, instead of getting something that's really bad for me, I get this bag of nuts, and it's usually $6.59. And I'm like, oh man, I can't keep spending like $7 a day on nuts.
Yeah.
It adds up.
Damn right.
So recently they were mispriced at 7-Eleven and they were only $2.
There you go.
So I just kept buying them.
It's buying bulk right now.
Right. I just kept buying them and I saved $4 per bag. You know, and on a $7 bag of nuts, that's actually a lot.
Yeah.
So I felt like it was in alignment with the way I was thinking. I was like, I really like this treat for myself because it has some benefits to it. It's not so bad for you. It's all natural.
The universe like made it affordable.
The universe made it like, you know what, you deserve this treat. It's the only treat you allow yourself to have. So
totally.
Here you go.
So I gotta pee. Do you want to like talk, or do you want to just end it?
I think we're gonna call it. I'm kind of losing my voice a little bit, but yeah. Well, let's say the outro.
That's usually how it'll end.
Thanks. Yeah. Someone either has to pee or they got to drink or whatever. Thanks for tuning in. Hope we were exciting and informative for you. Next week, we have Diana on the podcast talking about her demanifestation technique.
Nice. Can't wait for that.
Yeah. So thanks so much. Catch you next time.
Peace out.